Yun, hi mga master at welcome sa ating YouTube channel. Ngayon ay sabay-sabay natin panoorin at reaksyonan itong nangyaring Senate session dito sa Senado, no? Na kung saan itong si Senador Raffy Tulfo at si Senador Cayetano is nagkaroon ng konting girian. Hindi naman konting girian, girian talaga, no? Kaya magandang panoorin itong mga master dahil ito, makikita natin na talagang itong si Raffy Tulfo is talagang kulang sa kaalaman pagdating sa batas natin. At dito mga Tulfonatics, makikita nyo kung gaano kahina talaga yung idol nyo. Dahil dito, makikita na tinuturuan si idol ng kanyang kasama dito, no? Mas maganda pa nga na sana yun na lang yung pumasok eh. Yun na lang yung magsalita, no? Para hindi na mahirapan si idol. Ngayon mga master, sabay-sabay natin panoorin to at reactionan. Pero bago tayo magsimula, syempre shoutout sa inyong lahat. Ito na, let's do this.
There being no objection, amendments approved.
May bago pa ulit.
Ito pala mga master, no, marami tong sinabi dito sa idol, puro move na. Ganda na nga ng rhythm dito ni idol eh. Kala ko nga tuloy-tuloy na eh, pero sa isang iglap eh, merong sumingit.
Another additional, Mr. President, on page 31, line 2, section 56, after the word government, insert the phrase shall bear the cost of medical care and quarantine expenses. I so move, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Yan
Yes,
Yeah.
Senator Cayetano, so I can...
Tignan niyo yung mukha ni idol, no? Tignan niyo yung mukha ni idol. Kasi mga master, ang ganda na talaga ng rhythm dito ni idol. Puro I move na to. Puro I move na. Tapos, sa isang iglap, ito na.
After the word government, insert the phrase shall bear the cost of medical care and quarantine expenses. I so move, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Yes,
Yeah.
Senator Cayetano.
Tignan niyo yung mukha ni idol. Gulat siya, no? Gulat ka, no? Kala mo, Kala mo, walang Yan.
Is recognized.
I'm actually trying to follow because I have amendments and he might touch upon them and I cannot follow because we're jumping. It appears that the sponsor is introducing amendments by various colleagues. So I understand no, that they have different sections, but we need to slow it down so we can follow and it will make it easier for the sponsor so I don't have to repeat.
Slow down. Kasi sobrang bilis talaga mga master, no? Sobrang bilis talaga yung nangyari dito. Puro I move.
As it is, I will probably have to repeat some because I was not able to follow, Your Honor.
No worries.
So can we start at
maybe
least
ask-
with this one?
With this particular one, can
Yeah.
you state, it's not kasi in my list, it's not in my list, it's a new amendment. So what was the page again and
It's on
Line?
page 31,
okay, one second.
Mr. President,
Page 31.
line 2,
Mayado sa
Page-
idol,
one second, sir.
page 31,
Line 2.
line 2, section 56.
Okay, please proceed, Your Honor.
After the word government, insert the phrase shall bear the cost of medical care and quarantine expenses. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there an objection from our colleagues?
There being none, amendment is approved.
Additional, Mr. President, on the same page, on page 31, lines 22 to 24,
Mhm.
after the word technology, delete the rest of the sentence. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection to the amendment.
Mr.
Yes,
President,
please, proceed.
Actually, sorry. As I said, I'm trying to follow.
Ganyan talaga, idol, di ba? Kaya nagpapasa ka ng batas mo eh. Kaya, tama talagang aralin din niya mabuti para walang magkano sa'yo, di ba? Walang mag-object. Pero, diyan malalaman kung talagang magaling ka nga ba talaga. Diba? Kung kaya mong depensahan niyang ginagawa mo. Di ba?
My concern is the previous amendment.
Oh, which one? The last one that he mentioned?
The one,
Did he just read?
not the one that's on the floor now, just the previous one after
It was
Philippine government insert.
Page
Page
31,
31.
line 2.
Yes.
After Philippine government, Mr.
Yes.
Sponsor, you said to put the words,
After the word government, insert the phrase shall bear the cost of medical care and quarantine expenses. Yun po yung sinabi ko.
Yes. I captured that. In the succeeding amendments, if you could kindly read the entire provision as to how it will read, so it's easy for us to capture the entire sentence. Otherwise, I'm scribbling notes to capture the entire sentence. But on that note, that's why I belatedly captured it. I'm just explaining why delayed yung aking reaction. The Philippine government will carry the cost of care I think we need to be careful about that because in as much as I would like the Philippine government to take care of all OFWs, even PhilHealth cannot cover all the sicknesses of the Filipinos. So kailangan reasonable po ang expectations natin kasi mahirap pong mangako na hindi naman natin kayang ituparin. So may I suggest that the sponsor revisit that and come up with language that is more reasonable.
Tama naman doon si Senador Pia Cayetano, no? Kasi parang dito sa batas na ginagawa dito ni Raffy Tulfo, i-cover natin lahat. Di ba? Sa mga katulad niya sa quarantine. Pagdating sa mga pandemic, ganyan. Kunyari, magkaroon ng pandemic. Karoon ulit ng pandemic, no? Lahat ng expenses doon, iso-shoulder natin. Di ba? Dito pa nga lang sa pandemic na to, nagkanda baon-baon na tayo sa utang, Di ba? Meron pa tayong katulong nito, Kasi dito sa amin, no, bilang ako, experience ko as land-based, 'di ba? Dito pa lang sa Saudi Arabia, nagkakaroon na ng tawag nito. Test. Test na lahat 'yon bago ka makasakay ng eroplano, lalo na yung putok na putok yung pandemic, bago ka makauwi ng Pilipinas, ka pa, titest ka talaga. Dito pa lang sa Saudi Arabia. Siyempre, sagot 'yun ng company namin. 'Di ba? Sagot 'yun ng mga company, sagot ng gobyerno 'yun ng Saudi Arabia. 'Di ba? Kung paano kung maipasa yung batas ni Idol na kung saan sa atin lahat ng gastos, 'di ba? Doon pangalan nga sa pandemic na ito, nagkanda baon-baon na tayo. Paano pa pag may dumating na mas malalang pandemic, di iyak tayo lalo. Kasi sa atin na lahat Hindi ko na maintindihan, bakit gustong gawin to ni Idol? Sa anong dahilan? 'Di ba? Di man lang niya naisip na third world country tayo, dapat nga titingin tayo sa mga bagay-bagay, 'di ba, na kung saan saan tayo makakalis, makakamura. Pero bakit ang gusto nito ni Idol ayaw ang magso-shoulder nun? Ang laki kaya ang gastos niyan. Isipin mo yung mga aparato pa lang na gagamitin ang laking gastos na, 'di ba? Kasi kada pandemic hindi naman pare-parehas ang aparato na gamit 'yan, 'di ba? Iba-iba naman 'yan. Kaya dapat pag-isipan ni Idol 'yan. Huwag tayong yung tayo paggagastos doon 'di ba? Total hinar nga yun ng company. Dapat yung company nang mag-ano doon, 'di ba? Shoulder kasi meron naman yung mga insurance Joke talaga tong sa Idol
Mr. President, I was just saying that when you state that the government will handle the cost of care, medyo even PhilHealth cannot handle all, no? Lahat ng may cancer, gusto ko sagutin ng PhilHealth. Lahat ng may renal problems, gusto ko i-cover nila lahat ng dialysis. Pero may hangganan yung kakayanan. So wag tayong magpaasa na hindi naman kakayanin. And my request was to improve the language so that it's reasonable.
Improve the language. Dapat naklaruhin lang yung kasi nga ba mamaya maano din, 'di ba? Maano din yung company na hindi nakasulat sa batas nyo ganito Kayo ang magso-shoulder, 'di ba? Dapat linawin 'yon ni Idol yung nakasulat sa batas na pinapasa niya. Kasi nga magkakaroon ng misconception na misinterpret doon sa sinabi doon sa batas na nandun. Iisipin ng company, ay hindi nakalagay diyan shoulder nyo. Kasi nga, yun nga, sa PhilHealth nga, di ba, hindi naman shoulder nga lahat. Hindi naman shoulder lahat sa PhilHealth Kahit sa government yan hindi naman shoulder nila lahat. Mga cancer, hindi naman din lahat, di ba, nasa shoulder. Nga, hindi naman talaga kaya. Tipin mo, lahat ng gagastos yan shoulder ng gobyerno. Lalo na kung quarantine. Laki ng gagastusin dyan. Kaya nga tayo nagkanda baon-baon sa utang dahil dyan ang di ko nga lang maintindihan dito, bakit gusto ni Idol na tayo yung mag-shoulder? Bakit? Di ba? Dapat nga iisipin niya nga kung saan tayo makakalis. Joke talaga. Tingnan mo naman yung batas na gusto niya, road rage. Di ba? Bawal magmura sa kalsada. Pero sa Senado, pwede. Joke!
To the good, Mr. President, to the good sponsor, we're referring here upon arrival at the point of hire, which is dito sa Pilipinas, up to the seafarer's return to the place of domicile. Doon lang po. So pag dumating po dito sa Pilipinas at nag-quarantine siya, halimbawa mayroong pandemic na nangyari, emergency, then the
Mhm.
government will take care of all the expenses covered doon sa time na siya ay nasa quarantine.
Time na nasa quarantine. Tapos after nun, tapos na.
Until siya makauwi. Walang pinag-usapan po dito tungkol sa cancer, tungkol sa
Hindi, example lang yun, Idol. It nga lang.
halimbawa mayroong pandemic na nangyari, emergency,
Ah.
then the government
Kung may pandemic nga na nangyari, Idol, paano nga kung mas malala yung pandemic na mangyayari? Kunyari, yung pandemic na mangyayari, parang zombie, parang apocalypse. Malaking gastusan yun, Idol. Kung tayo mag-shoulder nun, na sana yung company. Kasi may insurance naman lahat yan eh. Kami nga dito na land-based, may insurance kami. Laki yan ang binabayaran na insurance sa amin. Di ba? Ano bang iniisip ni Idol? Dapat advance siya mag-isip eh. Di ba? Advance siya mag-isip kasi hindi lang naman ito yung kaya nga, di ba, sa nakasulat naman sa Biblia yun, di ba? Pandemic. Talagang yan, lalala pa ng lalala. Joke.
will take care of all the expenses covered doon sa time na siya ay nasa quarantine. Until siya makauwi. Walang pinag-usapan po dito tungkol sa cancer, tungkol sa chemotherapy or kidney dialysis.
Sample lang naman yun, Idol. Sinasabi lang naman doon ni Senador Pia Cayetano patungkol doon sa mga cancer, 'di ba, na hindi yun lahat i-provide ng gobyerno sa PhilHealth. Hindi naman talaga, 'di ba? May limitasyon naman yung PhilHealth natin eh. Ano sinasabi mo diyan na hindi magkaka-cancer? Ang lupit talaga mag-connect nito ni Idol eh, no? Connect na connect, Idol ang galing. Isipin mo yun. Sa quarantine, tapos kinonek niya dun sa sinabi ni Senador Pia Cayetano patungkol dun sa mga cancer. Sinasabi lang naman dun ni Senador Pia Cayetano about dun sa mga cancer. Hindi yun kayang i-provide lahat ng government, hindi sa PhilHealth, yung cost. Yung gagastusin, hindi lahat yung mapoprovide ng gobyerno. Diba? Sa PhilHealth. May mga cancer, diba? Kung saan cancer, basta may cancer. Hindi yun kayang i-provide ng gobyerno. Yun yung patukoy ni example nga eh. Kasi nga hindi naman talaga kaya ng gobyerno yung cost na yun. Ang laking gagastusin yun. Tapos ipapasan natin lahat sa gobyerno. Ano na matitira sa gobyerno natin? Wala na. Di ba? Malulugi tayo niyan. Di ba? Tapos kinonek bigla dito ni Idol. Ang labo eh. Goodness, mga Tulfo natics. Tingnan nyo, yung pinasok nyo sa Senado. Halatang walang alam sa batas. Kahit konting logic na lang, di ba? Common sense. Hindi niya pa rin na-gets. Labo naman ang utak ni Idol.
Dialysis, etc. Mr. President.
So the obligation of the government is limited to the quarantine because this provision refers to in case of epidemic or pandemic. I
Yes.
do not know what epidemic and pandemics there will be in the future.
Tama.
I am totally unable to predict what kind of care will be required. To say that they will be cared for in quarantine, okay na po yun. Pero all the cost of care, mahirap po yun. Kasi kung lahat yan, mga ilangan na ma-intubate, hindi ho kakayanin yun. Tapos magiging obligation of the state yan and they will not be able to perform. So I am just
Pero kahit nga dun sa, di ba, sa quarantine, dapat din. Diba? Sagot na ng company. Saan nga tayo makakalis eh? Kung saan tayo makakamura? Kaya, di ba, yung nangyaring pandemic, putik, nakandabaon-baon tayo sa utang. Tapos yun pa, di ba, yung example nga ni, yung sinabi ko nga rin kanina, hindi natin alam kung ano mangyayari pang pandemic eh. Diyos lang naman makapagsabi ng bukas. Walang tao makakapag-predict ng bukas. May manghuhula, pero wala talaga makakapag-predict ng eksakto mangyayari bukas. Paano kung mas malala nga yung maging pandemic, no? Yung ano, zombie, apocalypse sa utak. Kailangan pasukan ng tubo. Eh, ang daming aparato nun. Tas sasagutin lahat ng gobyerno yon, di ba? Ang laki pera. Kaya dapat, kung saan tayo makakamura? Di ba? Hindi yung mapapamura tayo.
Putting that on record because we have to be mindful of the limitations of the ability of government.
I understand, Mr. President, Your Honor, pero even before, doon po sa example ko sa nangyaring pandemic, yung mga returning OFWs, pagdating po sa kanilang quarantine, food, and up to the time na sila po ay mabalik sa kanilang domicile, yan po ay kinocover na po ng ating gobyerno through OWA.
Hindi lahat, Idol. Hindi lahat. Kahit kami hindi ko nga alam yung sa seafarer, kasi hindi naman ako seafarer, pero land-based, hindi naman lahat. Meron namang sinasagot ng ng company. Meron. Hindi lahat yung sagot ng gobyerno. Di ba nga? Hindi naman sinagot lahat ng gobyerno. Meron din mga company na nga na nag-ano. Pero kung nasa batas nga yan, di ba, kunyari, ginawa niya talagang batas yon. Ikaw kung magkaroon nga ulit ng pandemic, di sagot na natin lahat. Pero hindi lahat yung sinagot ng gobyerno, itong nakaraang pandemic. Hindi naman. Hindi ko lang alam sa mga seafarer, pero sa land-based alam ko, hindi lahat. Kasi nga, dito pa nga lang sa Saudi, bago pa makapunta doon sa Pilipinas, tinest na lahat yun eh. Nagiging 2 lang yung test eh. Di ba? Kasi hindi naman kasi ako umuwi mga master, kaya hindi ko rin alam eh. Pero alam ko talaga, dito pa lang, tinest na sila. Bago pa makasakay ng eroplano, tinest na sila. Kung meron ba silang COVID, ganon, kung infected ba sila. Di ba? Magpapatest ka na dito. Ngayon lang naman nagkaroon ng di ba, na wala nang quarantine kasi vaccine na, vaccinated na. Dati kasi wala pang vaccine eh. Di ba? Pero yun na nga, hindi naman lahat yun, cost ng gobyerno. Meron din company na nag-provide. Yun na nga, kung magiging batas to, magiging provide na natin lahat yun, ang laking gastos nun. Paano kung malala yung magiging pandemic, yung di ba, yung epekto ng ng virus. Paano kung lahat yan ditubo? Diubos ang pera natin. Kaya idol talaga eh. Pag-isipan niya na kung saan nga tayo makakamura eh. Paano kaya kung ganito gawin natin, no, na kung saan kung yung bansa na kukuha sa atin, dapat sagot na nila to. Diba dapat gano'n? Puro pahirap talaga yung gusto nito ni Idol eh. Grabe.
I don't see any reason bakit natin hindi pagpatuloy yung dati nang ginagawa nating gobyerno. Plus, pagdating sa pandemic, wala naman po siguro sa pandemic na ang naging result after sa pandemic, sila po ay nagkasakit sa kidney, sila po ay nagkasakit sa cancer.
Idol, ano ba yan? Sample lang yon. Grabe, no? Ang hina. Kaya yung mga Tulfonatics na vloggers nagagaya dito kay Raffy Tulfo eh. Kasi parehas nilang mag-isip eh. Sample lang yun. Paano nga kung magkaroon ng ay yung magkaroon yung yung sa sa mga sa PhilHealth. Yung may cancer, yung nagpapadialysis, hindi naman lahat yun shoulder ng PhilHealth. Ng government. 'Di ba? Hindi lahat yun sino-shoulder. Yung example lang. Kasi nga malulugi. Mababang karote ang Pilipinas niyan. 'Di ba? Goodness talaga si Idol.
And all, ang pinag-usapan lang dito is yung quarantine. Na habang sila nasa quarantine, yun po i-cover ng ating gobyerno, which ginagawa naman sa nakaraang pandemic, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Idol kung kinover nga ng gobyerno, pero mas maganda 'di ba kung ipapa-cover doon sa company. Pero marami din talaga nalugi doon sa panahon na yun, mga master. Isa ako doon sa naapektuhan. Yung una kong company, naapektuhan kami doon, no, nagsara. Kaya nalipat ako dito. Kaya nagsara yung una naming company. Dahil dyan sa pandemic. Pero yun Ayun na nga rin Raffy Tulfo lahat naman yan may insurance bayad naman yan ng company. Sabihin natin na gano'n nga may pandemic tapos nagkanda-lugi-lugi sila, pero bayad na yan bago pa magka-pandemic. Kunyari biglang nagkaroon ng pandemic, meron ng mga insurance yung mga yan. Lalo na yung mga seafarer. 'Di ba malalaki ang insurance ng mga yan. Kaya sa amin sa mga land base, malaki insurance ng mga yan. Kasi nga sila parang sundalo din sila 'di ba? Yung kabilang paa nila nasa hukay na rin yan kasi lagi sila nasa dagat. Delikado sa dagat. Lahat ng pwede mong maisip, pwede mangyari sa dagat, 'di ba? Yun na nga, yung sa hindi mo malalaman kung ano yung magiging sunod na pandemic. Joke talaga tong si Idol. Ayaw niya na makakamura tayo, no? Ang gusto niya mapamura tayo. Yung literal na mura.
To
Joke
be clear,
talaga.
Mr. President, hindi ko sinasabing magkaka-cancer sila. Nagbigay lang ho ako ng halimbawa na maski po lahat ng sakit na nagaganap, hindi kayang sagutin ng PhilHealth. Hindi ko ho sinabing magkaka-cancer po yung OFW na kina-quarantine. On that note, Your Honor, I think it will suffice if the records will bear that this is the reasonable care expected to be given to any Filipino, no, that would have to be quarantined. Reasonable care. Any Filipino. Pareho lang naman ang natatanggap, di ba? I think fair naman po yun. May I ask that the gentleman in the back be conscious that there's a official debate going on here. Sorry, hindi ko lang kasi marinig ang sponsor. Medyo seryosong usapan namin dito.
May maingay sa likod. No? May nagbubulungan siguro si Idol. Si Raffy Tulfo, ginigisa.
Our colleagues to settle down.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So, with that, Your
silent,
Honor,
please. Ang kulit, no? May ganyan din pala sila. Silent, please. Huwag maingay. Wag. May ginigisa. May ginigisa si Senador Pia Cayetano, okay?
I have no amendment. I just wanted, if His Honor agrees with my statement, then that will be on record na yan ang interpretation ng amendment na yan.
Thank you.
Mm.
Noted,
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Yung kasi nga yung lumalabas na parang kaya nga dapat ayusin mo lang yan, Idol. Yun lang. Kung kaya mo ayusin.
Pero
Your-
just as a point, Mr. President, Your Honor, ang sinasabi kasi namin dito, in cases of epidemic or pandemic as declared by the World Health Organizations, the organization, yun lang po yung Mr. President. Upon arrival at the point of hire, after the seafarer's return to the place of domicile. After that, wala na po. Wala nang obligasyon ng gobyerno sa gastusin kung ano pa man ma-incur. After na siya po ay makatapos sa quarantine and siya po ay naibalik na sa kanyang bahay, labas na po sa lahat ng gastusin ang ating gobyerno. Your Honor, Mr. President.
Thank you.
But however, para mapagbigyan po, the good senator from Taguig, Senator Pia Cayetano, sige, we can compromise by deleting medical care. So it will appear now shall bear the cost of quarantine.
Is that the amendment? You want to amend the amendment that you made?
Yes,
So we'll revisit. We'll reconsider
We
the
will-
previous amendment.
we will reconsider, Mr. President, taking into consideration the suggestion of the good senator.
Before we ask for the reconsideration, I just like to recognize my two dear friends from Cagayan de Oro and Misamis Oriental. We have with us Governor Congressman Bambi Emano and Congressman Lorden Suwan, mga kapitbahay ko po sa Cagayan de Oro. As well as, of course, earlier we said Mark Cagas, my compadre. So there is a move to motion, there not being objected to.
That, actually, Your Honor, to
Yes.
further clarify, the paragraph preceding that, the paragraph that, okay, section 56 has two paragraphs, no? May I get clarification from the sponsor that the first paragraph of section 56 refers to the ship owner's responsibility for the expense of medical care and board and lodging for periods spent by seafarer in self-isolation or quarantine, until the seafarer has been duly repatriated to the point of hire. In other words, ang ibig sabihin nito ay kung bumabiyahe yung barko at kahit tumigil kung saan mang bansa, it's the ship owner who will take care. Is that correct so far?
That is correct, Your Honor, Mr. President, Your Honor.
And then, sabi in the last sentence of that, in the last phrase of that paragraph, until the seafarer has been duly repatriated to the point of hire. So possible yan, ang point of hire is not in the Philippines, correct? So for example, na-hire siya in Hong Kong or wherever.
No, Mr.
So
President.
what does it mean?
No, Mr. President. Point of hire is always Manila, Philippines.
Okay, so in that case, the next paragraph which says, upon arrival at the point of hire, in other words, sa Pilipinas,
Mhm.
Mhm.
up to the seafarer's return to the place of domicile. Ano ba domicile niya? Di ba
Domicile, ibig sabihin,
Pilipinas din?
Mr. President, Your Honor, kapag halimbawa siya ay sa taga Davao, so yun yung domicile niya, pero point of hire niya is Manila, Philippines. So domicile is kung saan po siyang probinsya, kung saan po siya nakatira, depende po. Pero kung siya po ay nakatira sa Manila, then wala na, alisin natin, understood na yung place of domicile niya is Manila.
Sabihin, kunyari ako, taga Bulacan. Ang domicile ko, Bulacan. Pero na-hire ako sa Manila. Kasi karamihan naman ng mga ganyan sa Manila naman talaga, di ba? Okay.
President, Mr. Hart.
I note that, but I will put on record something, Your Honor. Just I just need a second to pull up the file.
With a good sponsor, the lady senator, I'll suspend for a minute so that maybe you could just fix the lines.
Okay.
Then we can revisit it. So I'll suspend for just a.
Actually, Your Honor, I can just tell His Honor now my concern if the proper use of if the proper language is domicile or residence. I think it's residence, but that's why I said, let me pull out the file because I will read into the record and His Honor can agree or disagree if residence or domicile is the better terminology to use.
Maybe it's better we just
Ayan, ayusin lang, ayusin. Tingnan natin kung maayos talaga nila.
suspend for 1 minute, sir. Motion suspend.
We allow the presiding.
Tuloy natin, no? Ang magandang usapan din dahil nagigisa si Idol eh. Nakikita talaga natin kung magaling talaga to si Idol. Haba pala nito. Tingnan natin kung saan na yan. Resume natin. Simulan natin syempre sa simula. Pag-resume.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
please,
President.
please. Thank you very much.
If I may continue what I was saying, I was pointing out that the bill refers to the obligation of the seafarer, the obligation of the ship owner or manning agency to take care, to be responsible for the expenses of medical care of the seafarer when in self-isolation or quarantine until the seafarer has been repatriated to the point of hire. And then the next paragraph goes on to say, upon arrival at the point of hire, which the sponsor said is always the Philippines, up to the seafarer's return to the place of domicile, the Philippine government will take care of his quarantine. I asked if His Honor means domicile or residence, and the sponsor said that he is just following what is contained in the Maritime Labor Convention. But this is a Philippine law, so we have to be sure what we are referring to because under Philippine law, there is a difference between residence and domicile. And the obligation of the Philippine government.
Iba pala yun, no? Sa batas ng Pilipinas, magkaiba yung domicile tsaka yung tawag nito, resident address. Okay?
Will be affected if the person does not return to the domicile.
O, yun yung kailangan linawin ni Idol. Di ba? Sa batas niya.
Right to choose kung ano yung final repatriation destination
Ano
niya.
yung bumubulong?
Meron siyang right to choose kung ano yung final repatriation destination niya. Either the point of hire or point of domicile.
Nagtuturo kay Idol. Nagtuturo. Patay tayo dyan. Ba't tinuturuan? Huwag turuan yan. Magaling yan eh. CBS and everything yan. Putik yan.
Point of domicile, permanent.
Okay, doon kasi sa contract, Mr. President, Your Honor, nakaspecify point of hire and point of domicile where he or she can choose kung saan siya babagsak at never na ano
My God! May tutor. BS and everything may tutor.
kung saan siya babalik in case of repatriation because we're talking here of repatriation. So therefore, like you mentioned and I've mentioned earlier sa MLC Maritime Labor Code 2006, never kasi na-mention doon yung word residence. They always use the term domicile in referring to the seafarer after he or she's been repatriated. So may point din po kayo dahil Philippine law ang pinairal natin dito. That's why much better kung gagamit tayo ng word residence. I see your point. On the other hand, dito po kasi sa MLC, maging doon sa contract nitong seafarer sa SEC, Sa standard employment contract, doon po sinusulat niya kung saan ang kanyang permanent domicile, and never na na-mention doon ang word residence. Kasi kung maglalagay tayo ng another word doon na wala po sa standard employment contract at wala po sa MLC, medyo magulo po yun, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Well, Your Honor, magulo din po yun if under Philippine law, you do not provide for clarity if you mean domicile or residence. What do you mean, Your Honor? What
Okay.
is your intention? At to what point will the Philippine government be responsible? Domicile or resident? What is the intention of His Honor in the draft?
Yan, makikita nyo talaga kung sino talaga yung may alam sa batas, no?
Oh,
The residence or the address given by the sponsor.
okay. The domicile
May tutor talaga si Idol. Palit na lang kayo, Idol. Kasi pwede yun, no? Kung pwede lang, no? Palit na sila. Baba na sa ano to si Raffy Tulfo. Ito na lang yung magsenador. Yung kausap niya.
is same as the address given by the seafarer when he signed his contract doon po sa SEC Standard Employment Contract. Doon po nakalagay yung kanyang exact address under the word domicile. Ganon din po doon sa MLC, yung word domicile ang means na yun po yung kanyang place of residence. And again, I would like to
Di mapakali si Idol, Parang di sigurado sa mga pinagsasabi, Ako, do sobrang galing sa batas, Pero halatang walang alam si Idol, Diba ganun pag hindi ka sigurado, parang hindi ka mapakali.
put it on record na I see your point, Your Honor, na this is Philippine law we're talking about. Dapat under Philippine law, gamitin natin yung word residence. However, since wala naman po yung word residence, maging sa standard employment contract na pinirmahan ng ating seafarer and maging sa MLC, baka magkaroon ng konting confusion doon. Because two different, I mean, doon sa dalawa, domicile always been mentioned and never na-mention yung word na residence. Mr. President, Your Honor.
Do I remember correctly that in the first part of His Honor's answer, he said in the standard employment contract, he would indicate as his domicile, his what? What did His Honor say? Place of residence, place of permanent residence? What was the statement made?
Saan mo?
Our deputation of preparation.
Ang sabi mo? Ulitin nga natin yun. Idol, ano ba yan, Idol? Parang iba yung sumasagot sa mga tanong ni tag nito, ni Senador Pia Cayetano, Putik talaga.
Statement made?
Saan mo?
Our deputation.
Di ba yan pwede patayin yung mic nila? Yung kagaya ng ginagawa nila, di ba? Yung sa Senate hearing. Iba ata dyan, Sa Senate session, No, pag grandstanding, tuloy-tuloy si Idol, di ba? Walang ano yan, walang patid yan. Galit pa yan. Di ba? Daming ano yan, sinasabi. O yan, pagbatas, Tingnan nyo mga Tulfonatics. Binoto nyo. May tutor. Nagpapasa ng batas. Tapos may tutor. My goodness. My God. 100 lawyer niya. Ay, my God.
Deputation of preparation.
Hindi na sa plan, sabi niya kasi sa SEC. Nakalagay doon domicile. Meron tayong po kanyo.
Yeah, tinuturuan, On the spot, si Idol, tinuturuan. My goodness, mga Tulfonatics. Not good, not good. Senador nyo, senador pala natin. Senador natin, tinan nyo. May tutor.
Saan din sa SEC to? Okay. Your Honor, sa kanyang standard employment contract, again, dun sa part ng repatriation, it refers to the process of returning seafarer to the point of hire or the seafarer's place of domicile. Yun po yung nakaspecify doon sa SEC. Your Honor.
But earlier,
Sigurado si Idol sa sinasabi niya, no? Pati siya naguguluhan na rin eh.
Your Honor, you said that the SEC states the domicile as something. You said that. What was that? I'm just asking for
Yeah,
His Honor to repeat that because I will try to help His Honor clarify the intention. If he just repeats, what did you say, permanent residence or current residence?
The place of domicile is the address written by the seafarer as his place of residence.
Okay,
Listed in the
okay.
S standard employment contract, he or she states there his place of domicile as his home address, Your Honor.
Okay,
Hindi siya sigurado eh, no? Di ba ganyan si Idol? Pag hindi siya sigurado, tingin siya.
Your Honor, what I am trying to explain is under Philippine law, there is a difference between domicile and residence. So in your
Iba ang domicile, iba ang residence.
standard employment contract, if a seafarer will indicate a particular address and it says domicile, then that is different from residence. If it says residence, then that is different from domicile. And I would insist that Philippine law would govern. So the obligation of government is affected if he will not be able to return the seafarer to the place of domicile because that is different, that could be very different from the place of residence. So it is important that His Honor tells us what is the intention. Where do you want the seafarer to be returned?
Okay, I thought, Your Honor, my team already talked to your team and they already agreed on that matter.
Your Honor, it is the sponsor and I who will agree.
No,
So,
no, yeah, I understand, Your Honor, but for the sake of brevity or for the sake of na para mapaiksi tayo and
Pero kailangan ho nagkakaintindihan
yes,
tayong
I
dalawa.
get the Honor.
Kailangan kasi linawin ni Idol yan. Kasi nga sa batas ng Pilipinas, magkaiba ang resident tsaka yung domicile. Di ba?
Na magkakaintindihan tayong dalawa, Your Honor. Bakit natin pinag-aawayan yung domicile?
Hindi mo natin pinag-aawayan,
Place of
iliwanag ko
residence.
lang po ang use of terms natin because they have significance, Your Honor.
What's the significance? What is the significance, Your Honor?
I
What's
think,
the significance
I
of
think-
domicile and place of residence?
I
What's so
think, Your
important?
Honor,
Tanong ng kabila, tanong din si Idol. Yung tanong na dapat sagutin ni Idol, tatanong din. My goodness, Idol. Sagutin mo muna kasi ng maayos. Hindi yung... Nagtanong ka din eh.
your lawyer should be the one informing you what is the difference of domicile and residence. I've already been pointing out that there is a difference. If your team cannot
But Your Honor, like I said,
Yan kasi talaga pag hindi lawyer, no? Magtatanong pa sa lawyer.
under the MLC convention provision, domicile refers to the home address. And in the SEC, it's the same when the seafarer filled out his SEC form, place of domicile there refers to his address. In the MLC and in the SEC, domicile means home address.
Your Honor, I am simply informing the sponsor that under
Magkaiba nga, di ba? Magkaiba nga yan, Idol.
Philippine law, there is a difference between
I
domicile
understand, Your Honor,
and
but it is
residence.
already understood under the MLC provision, domicile means home address, and under the standard employment contract, which the seafarer signed, the word domicile refers to his home address.
Okay, so I will
Sa batas nga ng Pilipinas, Idol, magkaiba yon.
ask His Honor a question. When the seafarer indicates a home address, yung po ba kaya ang kanyang temporary address sa Manila o yung po yung kino-consider niyang permanent home niya sa probinsya? Alin kaya ho yun dun?
Yung point of hire is Manila. When you say domicile, yun po yung permanent address niya, Your Honor. As declared doon sa kanyang SEC. Kasi po doon sa SEC, idideklara mo yung iyong home address. At anong nakalagay doon? Domicile. Wala naman nakalagay doon home address. Nakalagay doon domicile.
Your Honor, I am just putting on record that there are legal differences. Huwag ho kayo magagalit.
No,
kasi
no,
ho,
I'm not mad.
May legal
I'm not
differences
mad, Your Honor.
po yun.
But
Lala kasi, nabara na si Idol, eh, no? So, dapat sagutin naman lang ni Idol yan, eh. Yun na, tapos na ng usapan, eh. Eh, yan nga si Mayra pag walang alam sa batas, di ba?
pong malito ang gobyerno at ang ating
Well, yung
pong mga
gobyerno po hindi
seafarers.
malilito, I'm sure.
Sir,
I
there are
guarantee you, the
legal
government
differences. So if we do not
Yan na, no? Yan na. Tumataas na ang boses ni Idol.
clarify,
Hindi naman natin pwedeng baguhin lahat dahil sa kagustuhan mo para
Session
masusunod yung
suspended.
Uminit ulo ni Idol. Di niya masagot eh. Mga Tulfonatics, di kasi masagot ni Idol. Hindi niya masagot. Pinutol. Tuloy natin. Mga masaya-saya yung ano dito, bakbakan. Suspend eh. Nagkainitan na eh. Nagkainitan eh. Pero tama lang yan. Talaga makatikin to si Idol ng ano, no? Para malaman niya. Diba? Para malaman niya kung ano yung pinasok niya, diba? Baka kasi iniisip niya puro grandstanding lang sa Senado. O, yan. Ganyan magpasa ng batas. Diba? Kasi nga, kapakanan ng mga Pilipino, dapat ang ano dyan, diba? Ayusin.
I would like to put it in record, Mr. President, before anything else, that in the definition of terms, there will be a definition of domicile and place of residence for clarity purposes. The reason why I used the word domicile and said that it's one and the same, just because or only because in the MLC and in the standard employment contract, domicile refers to the home address of the seafarer. But in the definition of terms, we have to separate the definition of domicile and place of residence. Mr. President,
Thank you for that clarification.
Your Honor.
Could you repeat your previous motion? Just for
I'm sorry, Mr.
you
President.
had a previous motion.
actually, Mr. President, we will await the definition because the word residence, as far as I know, does not appear in the bill. So as to how it will be defined and how it relates to the other definitions in the bill, we will look at it, Your Honor, to help His Honor make sure that it is consistent.
Presidential address. The other amendments first, go back to the.
Okay, does the sponsor,
Your Honor is the sponsor.
I'm sorry, does the, Your Honor, Mr. President, does the good senator from
Nalito ata si Idol ah. Siya yung sponsor, di ba? Bitin nga natin.
a sponsor,
Your Honor is the sponsor.
I'm sorry,
Siya yung sponsor. Nawala na si Idol. So yan, Idol. Parang ano mo yan, anak mo yan. Di ba?
does the, Your Honor, Mr. President, does the good senator from Taguig wants us to,
Nabubulol na, no? Ganyan talaga pag ano hindi sigurado sa sasabihin, mabubulol na. Aral-aral din kasi Idol para ano, no? Hindi yung puro grandstanding, bising-busy ka dun eh.
come up with the definition of terms now where it will
No,
appear
at
the
His
word,
Honor's, Mr. President, at His Honor's convenience.
I'm sorry,
I was saying that the definition of terms can be produced at His Honor's convenience. I was simply pointing out that
all right.
the term residence does not appear, but there is a section 28 where it refers to residential address, I think. I'm just pointing that out so that the team that is drafting can take that into consideration.
Okay, If, if the good senator from Taguig would allow us to proceed with the other amendments, and then we can just go back to the issues that are being raised by her honor.
Of course, His
pertaining to-
Honor has the floor. His Honor was making his amendment on section 63,
Okay,
and I was simply asking for a copy so
Thank
that I
you.
could follow the amendment.
thank you, Madam Senator. Thank you. Okay, now, can we proceed now, Mr. President?
Yes, please
Your
proceed,
Honor.
Your Honor.
Okay. Next, Mr. President, is another amendment from Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Did His Honor finish the amendment prior, or is this a repetition? Because there was an amendment on the floor.
Yes.
I had simply asked for a copy. The provision, the amendment was proposed, Your Honor.
Yes, is this a repeat of the amendment before we suspended?
I'm sorry?
Is this, are you just
This
repeating?
is a new amendment Mr. President.
So we can rule on the previous amendment that you,
Yeah.
Yes, but I was asking for a copy, Your Honor, and His Honor, we suspended because His Honor
Yeah.
was going to give me a copy or put it on the screen, whichever is convenient, whichever is convenient, whichever is fastest.
Yung red.
It is already being projected even while we speak on the monitor, Mr. President, Your Honor, Madam.
Because Your Honor, you said line 5 and 6 will be deleted and I still have line 5 and 6. So that's why I'm sorry, I'm confused. So when you tell me it's on the screen, I am going to
It
follow
should be-
His
it should be
Honor's
deleted.
instructions, But
If it
but I
hasn't
don't
been
see it
deleted yet, then that should be deleted. Okay, it's being done now, right? Good, okay. We can see it real time. Those
Tayong binubura, no? Ano, tama lang naman yan. Kasi nga, kapakanan ng mga Pilipino dapat ang ayusin nila dyan, di ba? Yan talaga, Idol. Yan dapat, pag gagawa ka ng batas, kailangan mong pag-aralang mabuti para pulido na, di ba? Hindi na naka-question.
words being deleted, good.
Word domestic security.
I can make a motion na lang.
So now, see, delete some more.
So paano yan?
There you
Delete some more, dapat dinelete na lahat, no? My goodness. Idol. Wala nang natira, konting paragraph na.
go. Okay.
Just rather read it.
So the amendment will now read as follows. Domestic seafarers
Keepers
on
on
board
board,
domestic ships
multi-ship shall be entitled
shall be entitled to emergency rescues in cases of war, epidemics, abandonment, disasters or calamities, whether natural or man-made, and other similar events,
Philippines Coast
and
Guard.
then insert all costs related to the rescue, including
Ah.
transport
Bali ito matatanggal na rin, no?
of the seafarers' remains and personal effects, and the provision of financial security in case of abandonment, as may be applicable to domestic seafarers, shall be borne by the ship owner. The Philippine Coast Guard, PCG, and Marina shall
Titingin siya dun sa ano niya, no? Nagtuturo sa kanya. Siyempre, abogado yun. Pero, yan na nga eh. Yan ang mahirap pag hindi abogado yung gagawa ng batas.
undertake and assist in the rescue of domestic seafarers on board domestic ships. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is
Gano'n
approved.
ba siya? Nag-ganon ba siya? Nag-thumbs up? Tingnan natin.
So move, Mr. President. On board, undertake and assist in the rescue of domestic seafarers on board domestic ships.
Approve. My goodness. Senador Raffy Tulfo. Pag grandstanding, walang ganon, no? Mga Tulfonatics, di ba? Walang ganon. Kayo yung gumaganon. Approve yan, Idol. Approve yan. My goodness. Talaga.
I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Next, Mr. President, is another amendment from Senator Risa Hontiveros. On page 40, line 25, under section 78. Pakita lang yung 78 para mapalo ni Senator Pia. Add a new sentence which shall read as, discrimination on the basis of race, sex, gender, religion, and political opinion, taking into consideration the inherent requirements of the job or undertaking, shall be prohibited. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Another amendment from Senator Francis Tolentino. On page 42, line 22, under section 83, insert a new paragraph which shall read, the educational background and experience of a seafarer on board vessels and previous sea service shall be given due consideration should they opt to join the Philippine Navy Reserve Force. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Finally, per amendment of Senator Coco Pimentel, on page 49, line 21, under section 91, after its, delete commission and replace with discovery. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
I further move that the Secretariat be authorized to make the necessary formal adjustments subject to style, including cross-referencing of section numbers affected by new inserted sections. Thank you very much, Mr. President, sir.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
1 minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session suspended.
Tuloy natin hanggang matapos ito, no? Ito, yung bangayan lang nila Senador Raffy, Tulfo at saka ni Senador Cayetano.
Comments eh hindi lang ho dahil kagusto bill ng sponsor. Mas intervention of to comment. Thank you.
Ayan,
Mr.
simulan natin
President,
simula.
with the permission of the sponsor, I would just like to comment that the amendment that his sponsor made after the intervention of the Senate President Pro Temp, clarifying the definition of domicile is a very good definition. I commend him for that. Mas klaro talaga siya, and I'd like the sponsor to know na to begin with, I only pointed that out precisely for the need for clarity. Ayoko ho nang magulo kasi lalong ikagaganda ng bill ng sponsor natin kung maganda yan. At ang akin hong mga comments eh hindi lang ho dahil kagustuhan ko, katulad po ng sinabi ng ating sponsor. Ikagaganda ho ng bill yan.
I understand, Mr. President, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. President, I will proceed with a very few amendments, and some of which may not be necessary depending on the response of His Honor. Kasi again, most of them are clarificatory. So on page 8, section 7, we have a provision on the right to educational advancement and training at reasonable and affordable cost. So sabi dito, seafarer shall have access to educational advancement and training at reasonable and affordable cost. No fees or other charges other than tuition and other miscellaneous fees shall be imposed on cadets, interns, apprentices, on-the-job trainees, or other persons similarly situated. May I know if the bill defines cadets, interns, apprentices, and on-the-job trainings to ensure and those cadets, interns, apprentices, on-the-job trainees? I see that there is a definition for cadets, and the reason for my question is simply because we don't want there to be confusion na, ay intern yan, ay hindi yan intern, ay hindi on-the-job training yan. So sino po sila para maproteksyon na natin itong provision na ito na magbibigay sa kanila ng reasonable and affordable educational advancement and training?
Okay. What is the proposed amendment, Your Honor?
Your Honor, as I mentioned, my
Yan na talaga, magkakaalaman na kung talagang sinong may alam sa batas. Mga Tulfo natics, tignan nyo idol nyo ha.
amendment will depend on the response to my question. Kasi hindi ako makapagawa ng amendment kung hindi ko po alam kung meron ho bang mga difference ang mga binanggit ko na types of students.
Because in the definition of terms, Mr. President, Your Honor, the cadets and interns, apprentices has been defined already.
Cadets, interns, and apprentices. Anong section po? Kasi section 4B is the definition of cadets. Hindi ko po nakita yung definition ng iba.
Nigisa talaga si idol ah. So, tama lang naman talaga yan. Diba? Tama lang talagang busisihin ng maayos yan. Dahil kakaproblema tayo dyan idol. Pag puro pasa-pasa lang. Ayan na si tutor. No, itong tutor niya, no? Siyempre, abogado yan, di ba? Abogado yan. Yan, Tulfo natics. Lalagay tayo ng mga hindi abogado. Ano nangyayari? May tutor. Natin na nyo, si Senador Robin Padilla, yung sinasabi niya na charter change, wala na. Hindi na kaya. Kasi, mahirap talaga pag hindi abogado, tapos magsasabi na mag-amend daw ng batas, magpapalit ng batas. Paano nga naman nila nagagawin kung hindi naman nila alam yung gagawin nila, di ba? Gaya ni Idol, tinan nyo. May tutor.
To avoid confusion, we can remove the interns, apprentices, on the job claims.
Okay. All right, Mr. President,
Ulit na lang kasi kayo, Idol, para hindi ka na mahirapan, no?
Your Honor, to avoid confusion, we will amend and remove interns, apprentices, and on-the-job trainees,
Mhm.
and leave the word cadets instead, or other persons similarly situated.
Lahat po yon tatanggalin nyo, ah?
Yes, Your Honor. So matitira na lang po yung cadets or other persons similarly situated.
Ano lang, burahin lahat, no? Wala na natira. Ang natira sa batas ni Idol, pag ganyan.
So in other words, Your Honor, the students you are referring to are all cadets.
They're all cadets, Your Honor.
So pati who, okay, I think it's clear enough to me. So if His Honor would like to make the amendment, he can make the amendment. I was just, as I said, pointing out that there may be need for clarity. So His Honor may make the amendment if he so desires.
I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection to the amendment of our distinguished colleague, amendment is approved. Please proceed.
So inalis na yun, ano? Tinanggal natin yung cadets. Strike down. Hindi, kaya nga. Inalis yung interest sa trainees. So, stop on cadets and then all other persons, alis na rin yun. We start.
Okay.
So, shall be imposed on cadets.
So, wait.
So,
Saan pa yung amendment?
clear na.
Please proceed with the other amendments. Your Honor.
Just tell me what yung political opinions sa past.
Suspend ulit, no? Tapos may suspend pa kaya dito? Wala na naman siguro, hanggang matapos na siguro to, no? Hanggang dito na lang. Tapos, wala na. Hanggang dyan na lang naman. Hindi, meron pa. Meron pang kung ano.
25.
Tingnan natin.
Yes.
Your Honor, on page 10, line 25, after the word opinion, insert the phrase health status or medical history. And the reason for this, Your Honor, is that we do have basis to show that there has been health and medical history discrimination against our OFWs, including seafarers, even ailments that are not prejudicial to their companions, they would be barred from applying, Your Honor. And so we would like that phrase inserted. We
Thank you,
submit,
Mr. President. Your Honor, what kind of medical history are you referring to, Mr. President, Your Honor? Kasi pag seafarer ka, dapat physically and mentally fit ka to do the job because the job of a seafarer is not an easy one. Medyo very physical po yun. And you should always be up to the demands of the job,
Yes.
especially sa sea na kung saan maalon and palagi ka dapat attentive. So therefore, you must be physically and mentally healthy. So ano pong ibig niyo sabihin sa discrimination against medical condition? Ano medical condition po, Your Honor? Are you referring?
Gano'n naman talaga, di ba? Pag nag-a-apply ka, kailangan nga, physically fit ka.
Yes, the actual phrase is health status or medical history. I note that this,
What's health status, Your Honor?
yes, Your Honor, I am explaining.
Okay.
So, before I
Yan, yan. Ito. Explain daw muna kasi, Idol. Huwag ka muna sumabat.
give the example, I'd like to point out that this provision, this line that I inserted comes before the phrase that states, taking into consideration the inherent requirements of the particular job or undertaking. So it is noted, Your Honor, that there are physical requirements demanded of this position.
Mhm.
So the health status or medical history that I will give as an example that has a history of discrimination is hepatitis B. And we worked on this for many years, and DOLE actually has an advisory number 5 in 2010 that there shall be no discrimination of any form against workers on the basis of their hepatitis B status, consistent with the international agreements on non-discrimination ratified by the Philippines, ILOC 111. So, Your Honor, we're not really introducing anything new. We understand that there are demands of the job. We leave it up to the best judgment of the
Ikausap si Idol, no? Nag-ano si, ano, no? Si attorney, ay si Senador Pia Cayetano.
LOC 111. So, Your Honor, we're not really introducing anything new. We understand
Kausap si Idol.
that there are demands of the job. We leave it up to the best judgment of the employer, and I know that we already have conventions in place protecting this. It is just consistent, Your Honor, and using that as an example.
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor, I see your point. If you're talking about medical history, as long as hindi kasama doon yung present health condition, then I will accept, Your Honor.
Actually, Your Honor, again, I will repeat, the phrase that I use is health status. When His Honor says, as long as it is just history, he will accept.
Medical
it is-
history.
It is very possible that a person's health status includes being positive for hepatitis B, but that does not in any way impair his ability to run a marathon, to climb a tree, to break world records, and that is precisely why there is that DOLE advisory that prevents discrimination of any kind. Again, I emphasize that this is not something new. I'm just using it as an example to be sure na covered po ito dito kasi yan po ang status nila, meron po sila niyan. Pero hindi naman ho nai-impair ang kanilang condition. Now, if in fact debilitated po sila, iba yon kasi their condition is impaired.
Okay,
Talagang ano, no? Pag maraming alam sa batas, no? Tsaka talagang merong talagang utak, talagang matalino. Ito ko nahirapan.
pagdating po kasi sa PME, Mr. President, Your Honor, at nakita doon na positive kasi
Ito,
hepatitis.
makikita talaga natin, no? Kung talagang matalino ba talaga si Raffy Tulfo dito. Talagang gagana talaga yung ano niya, utak niya.
B.
Iba yung utak niya ni Senador Pia Cayetano, no? Talagang pang-anuhan talaga, pang senador.
Baka hindi ka po matatanggap na sasampa sa barko because of that. And there is a requirement kasi, Mr. President, Your Honor, na lahat ng mga sasampa sa barko, wala pong present medical condition.
Is it medical condition?
Mr. President, Your Honor.
Kasi ako dito mga master, no? Kunyari, sa mga land-based, kailangan naman talaga physically fit, eh. Ako nga, dati bumagsak pa ako sa tibok ng puso, eh. Mabilis daw yung tibok ng puso ko nun, eh. Yung nagpa-medical ako. Tingnan natin ulit kung anong pinupunto dito ni Senador Pia Cayetano. Medyo ano din ako, eh.
Well, perhaps would His Honor like to table this and ask his resource person to check with DOLE because I have already mentioned 3 times that there is a DOLE advisory on this, and
Sa Dolly Advisory. Okay?
this is consistent with ILOC 111. So I'm willing to have this tabled so we don't have to take up all the time. Let's proceed with the others, and may we ask the sponsors resource person to confer with DOLE.
Yes, go ahead, Your Honor. We can go to the next and then go back to that matter later, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. On Section 21, there is an enumeration of duties of a seafarer. And letter E states to continually improve one's professional competency by keeping up to date with the latest technological and scientific development applied in various maritime fields, continuous education, and keen observation of shipboard activities.
What
I
page-
repeat,
what
that
page
is
that,
Section
Your Honor?
21, line E, page 13.
Line, section 21,
Section 21, letter E.
letter E.
It
Okay,
is on page 13.
okay. To continually
Page
improve
13.
one's professional competency by keeping up to date with the latest technological and scientific developments applied in various maritime fields, continuous education and keen observation of shipboard activities. What is it that you want to amend here, Your Honor?
Yeah, so again, I have a question first before I proceed with an amendment.
Okay.
My question po would be a bit technical. Ano ho ba ang current practice ngayon when it comes to professional continuous education? What kind of continuous education? How often? And is it just the officers or is it the non-officers who are also required? And who normally pays for this, Your Honor? Kasi under this provision, it would be the duty of the seafarer. And I want to be sure, I am very pro continuous education, but I would like to know what the practice is. Kasi baka naman yung mga non-officers, mahirapan sila. The minority floor leaders on the floor with us, and he will agree with me that nakakatulong naman yata yung MCLE, yung continuous education naming mga abogado. But lawyers can pay, but many times it is their law offices that would pay for it. So I just want to know the practice sa seafarers para hindi naman po dagdag na bigat ito, although we do really want them to have access to continuing education.
Grabe yung utak ni Senador Pia Cayetano. Nangangamote tuloy si Raffy Tulfo. Pati ako. My goodness. Si Raffy Tulfo, senador natin yan, di ba? Kaya dapat, di ba? Alam niya yung mga ganyang bagay. Yung mga question ni, yung mga nakikita ni Pia Cayetano, di ba? Talagang binubusisi niya ng talagang para hindi naman talaga nga magkamali. Kasi sayang yung pera, sayang yung oras, di ba? Sasayang lang ng oras, sasayang pa ng pera. Kung sakaling yan, papasayan tapos hindi nabusisi ng maayos. Eto, nabusisi ng maayos. Ang lang dito, si Pia Cayetano nagbusisi. Nangangamote tuloy si Idol, di ba? May tutor Yan kasi. Sabi kasi, di tatakbo, tas yun tumakbo. Yan tuloy, nag-isa ka tuloy dyan.
Because it is phrased as a duty.
The recipients and the officers are.
Letter E, minority floor leader.
It depends on the kind of ship that the seafarer is on board, Mr. President, Your Honor. Kasi merong ship na kailangan continuous upgrading yung mga seafarers na nakasampa doon para tumugma naman po yung kanyang skills, yung kanyang knowledge doon sa ship na mas mataas ang grade at mas technologically advanced than another ship, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, but the question was, who pays? What is the practice?
The ship owner, Mr. President, Your Honor, the ship owner.
So that is not clear in this bill, Your Honor. It would appear from my perusal that it is the duty of the seafarer. So kung ang nagbabayad naman ship owner, baka ho pwedeng liwanagin natin at the expense of the ship owner.
I agree, Mr. President, Your Honor.
So may I make that
Dami-dami na yung pinalitan Dami-dami na rin yung binawas, no? Baka wala na matira dyan, Idol.
formal amendment that in letter E, which is page 13, line 12 to 14, subject to style, to add the phrase at the expense of the ship owner. But sorry, before I make that formal amendment, may I ask His Honor's resource person, it's the ship owner, no, not the manning agency. So
Ship
the
owner.
okay. So the amendment is at the expense of the ship owner, subject to style, if it's at the beginning of the phrase or at the end.
The manning agency is the representative of the ship owner, Mr. President, because the ship owners are based in abroad and the manning agency is based here in the Philippines. So the seafarers deals with the manning agency all the time, Mr. President, Your Honor. So pwede na rin po yung
But I think it's still the obligation of the ship owner, no?
exactly.
Okay.
Pareho lang po yun, manning agency or ship owner kasi representative po ng ship owner ay yung manning agency. So pwede natin ilagay manning agency, pwede natin ilagay ship owner as long as hindi po yung mismong seafarer ang magbabayad. So I think it's suffice.
Well,
The minority leader is raising his hand. The
Okay,
minority-
with the permission of our colleagues. So I think this is a timely question to ask. Is it clear that in our measure that the liability of the ship owner is solidary with the manning agency and also the other way around?
That is correct,
Okay,
Mr. President, Your Honor.
Is it found in our measure? Kasi kung hindi, we are ready to also propose a provision to make that very explicit.
Wait, tanong, tanong sa tutor. Meron ba? Goodness, Raffy Tulfo. Mga Tulfo natin, tingnan mo. Wala na natira sa batas ni Idol. Pinalitan. Ay, goodness.
Mr. President.
Watch party pala ito, mga master, watch party. No, basta lahat ng yung mga lalaktawan natin yan. Doon lang tayo tapusin natin hanggang matapos to. Natin alam kung yung oras to. Pero magandang panoorin Magandang panoorin, no? Medyo mahaba ba. Pero mga hanggang doon na lang tapos wala na ata. Ano? Watch party.
So at the proper page and proper time, we will do
Tingnan natin kung paano tumarbaho si Raffy Tulfo ng batas, no? At kung paano siya ginisa ni Senador Pia Cayetano.
it, Mr. President.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Minority Leader, Senator Coco Pimentel, and you have a point, and I accept.
Thank you. So we will do it. We will do it in due time, Mr. President,
Yes.
at the proper place in the bill, Mr. President.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Honor.
Mr. President, I made my amendment, but is His Honor sure that the practice is it is always the ship owner? Because I got information from Amosop that sometimes they pass it on to the seafarers. So I'm not trying to reinvent the practice, but of course I would prefer that it is the ship owner. So I think that has to be a judgment call, or I defer to the wisdom of the sponsor kung ano din ang talaga bang sinasabi ng mga resource persons natin.
May kausap na naman si Idol, no? May bumubulong-bulong eh. Ay, goodness.
Accept. What is it that you want to amend again, Your Honor?
Your Honor.
Wala lang natira. Wala lang natira, Idol.
Based on Mr. President, based on the sponsor's response, that what is the practice? What is the current practice? Who pays for the continuous training? The answer the sponsor gave was it is the ship owner. So I was already making that amendment. However, I just went out of my way to also ask Amosop, who His Honor recognizes as a leader in protecting the rights of seafarers, and I was told that depending on the agreement, sometimes it is the seafarer who pays. So I'm not trying to reinvent anything, but of course I would like the seafarers not to have to pay. Pero hindi ko alam kung malaking bagay ito sa mga companies. Usually naman daw sila ang nagbabayad. So
Okay.
it appears that
The common practice, Mr. President, Your Honor, if it's required by the STCW, then it should be the employer, meaning the ship owners. And that is the present setup, Mr. President, Your Honor. According to Amosop,
okay.
according to Amosop, since the Amosop has been quoted, so they are here and they just,
Hindi naman nila alam kung sinong ka-text ko sa Amosop. So hindi ko naman papakita ko sa inyo yung pangalan, alam nyo na. But anyway, off the record naman. Ako naman po, I'm just asking what's the practice. I think, so are we comfortable saying that it is the ship owners that will pay? It will give us leverage in fighting for our seafarers. So that is the amendment, Your Honor.
that is
Subject
correct.
to style.
Mr. President, Your Honor, we already agreed, we already accepted the amendment that you're proposing, that we will put here the ship owner who will take over the charges, Mr.
Okay.
President, Your Honor.
There being no objection from the sponsor, the amendment is
Thank you. Your Honor, my next amendment, if I make an amendment, would be on section 23. I'll give the sponsor a
Himay-himay talaga ni Senador Pia Cayetano ah. Tama lang yan. Para malaman ni Tulfo kung ano ba talaga ang pinasok niya.
moment to catch up with that page. Section 23, page 14? Page 14. This is the pre-employment medical examination. So this provision states, all PEME, which is the pre-employment medical examination of seafarers, shall be performed only in DOH accredited medical facilities by authorized government medical practitioners and following the standards set by DOH. My question first, Your Honor, is, kailangan ho ba ang magko-conduct ng medical exam ay government practitioner?
No, government accredited medical facilities. That a facility, it doesn't have to be government, but it has to be accredited by the government.
He's not,
DOH, meaning government here refers to DOH, should be accredited by the Department of Health. It
Yeah.
can be,
yes, Your Honor, but if you read the next line,
DOH accredited medical facilities, it doesn't say here, only in government medical facilities. If you will notice, it says DOH accredited.
Your
It
Honor,
doesn't say only in government medical facilities. DOH accredited, meaning it could be a private clinic,
yes.
but accredited by the DOH.
That is correct, Your Honor, but there is another line after that. I read the whole provision. It states DOH accredited medical facility by authorized government medical practitioners. What does that mean?
Authorized government medical practitioners. Because other, even private practitioners can.
Okay. In that sense, Mr. President, Your Honor, I accept removing the word by authorized, by government, the word government, the word government. So it will read, all payment of seafarers shall be performed only in DOH accredited medical facilities by
Authorized medical.
authorized government. No,
Ano ba, wala
by
nang government?
authorized medical practitioners.
Practitioners.
And that is the confusing part, Your Honor.
Tama nga naman. Kasi kung may government, sabihin government. No? Hindi siya private.
I'm sorry,
I have not
by
made an,
authorized medical practitioners, Your Honor.
Hmm.
I can
In the
make the amendment
following,
if His Honor would like
the
me to help.
standards
It says
set
all
by
payment
DOH.
of seafarers, go ahead, do the amendment, Your Honor. Do the honors.
Yes, Your Honor, my amendment would be to delete the
Yan talaga ang trabaho, no? Yan talaga ang trabaho. Tama lang naman yan, Idol, no? Para malaman mo talaga yung trabaho. Hindi yung puro grandstand. Kasi doon sa Senate hearing nyo, puro sigaw-sigaw lang eh. Puro mema lang, di ba? May masabi lang. Yan talaga, di ba? O yan. Ganda yan. Para matuto, di ba? Matuto.
phrase by
Nga lang, nagiging training ground yung Senado eh. Di ba? Sayang, di ba? Nagiging training ground eh.
authorized government medical practitioners end, such that the whole sentence would read, all payment of seafarers shall be performed only in DOH accredited medical facilities following the standards set by DOH.
I accept.
There is no objection to the sponsor.
Pinuna-
Amendments approved.
Pinunahan na lahat mula dito hanggang baba. joke lang. Mga Tulfonatics, relax lang kayo. Ginigisa-gisa lang yung boss nyo.
Thank you, Mr. President.
My goodness, talaga.
This one is just a clarification. If it is clear to His Honor, then I will not have to make an amendment. Page 14, section 25, on training and
Di na makapalag si Idol, no? Di na siya makapalag kasi, di ba abogado to si Pia kanila, no? Di na siya makapalag eh. Okay na lang siya ng okay.
qualification. It states only seafarers certified by appropriate government agencies according to the STCW and other applicable international standards shall be allowed to work and be employed on board a ship. Who is this? Who are these appropriate government agencies? Is this clear in the bill?
We're talking here of Marina, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Is it clear in the bill?
It is specified on the role of government agencies, Your Honor, Mr. President.
What section is that, Your Honor, Mr. President?
Akong nahirapan sa inyo eh.
Yan ang trabaho ng senador. Senador Raffy Tulfo. Ganyan ang trabaho ng senador. Kaya nga, di ba? Mga Tulfonatics. No? Tayong bumoto basta-basta lang ng kung sino-sino. Tinan nyo, nahihirapan si Idol, oh. Nahihirapan kasi talaga siya yan dahil hindi naman niya talaga kabisado yung batas natin. Sino yung mga, yung mga vloggers na nasabing magaling itong si Raffy Tulfo? Tingnan nyo. Magaling nga ba talaga? Pag totoong trabaho ang usapan, ha? Diba? Pag puro boka, magaling sa Idol. Pero pag totoong trabaho nila, tingnan nyo, nangangamote. Nahihirapan. Ganyan talaga. Pinasok mo yan. Ano hindi ganun mo? Binoto ka ng mga Tulfonatics eh. Di ba meron pang isang vlogger, kung wala nga daw si Robin Padilla, baka ikaw pa daw yung number 1? Di ba joke? Tignan niyo yung number 1 senador natin. Yung charter change niya, wala na. Talaga nga naman.
Section 84, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Section 84 of this bill? My question is it clear in this bill?
Ika tatantanan ni Pia Cayetano, yari ka, ide. Di mo kasi binigay yung address eh. Kung binigay mo yung address doon sa may PTA meeting, no? Yung mga eskwelahan na kung saan nagkakaroon ng mandatory contribution, di ba? Kung binigay mo yung address doon, baka tinigilan ka na ni Senador Pia. Ay, my goodness. Ganda ng watch party na to, ha? Sarap pala manood ng ganito, no, na nagigisa si Aiden. Kasi siya naman madalas maggisa, di ba? Nakakainis eh. Nakakainis pag siya lagi naggigisa eh. O ngayon, siya ay nagigisa. Kahit matagal, okay. Sumusuko na si Aiden. Nahihirapan na, mga tulponatics. Nahihirapan sa inyo eh. Pinahirapan nyo kasi mga tulponatics eh. Pinasok-pasok nyo kasi dyan eh. Di ba? Yung may kasalanan yan.
Well, it's included in the bill because it's stated on section. Hindi, tinatanong niyo kung nasa bill. No, it's in the bill on section 84.
Hindi na gumawa ulit ng batas na si Idol, no? Baka hindi na siya yung sponsor, no? O hindi siya, na lang, Cybet na lang. Ay, my goodness.
Ano ba yung section 84? Section 84, page 42. Your Honor. It says here, the following government agency shall perform the following functions to promote the welfare and protect the rights of Filipino seafarers.
Agencies.
Is there,
Paragraph G.
yes, I found it, Your Honor.
Okay.
So according to Your Honor, just for the record, the appropriate government agencies referred to here in section 25 is the Marina, which is provided for in section 84. Are there any other government agencies?
Marina, bukod sa Marina, meron. Include ba dito yung CHED? Also CHED, Your Honor, Mr. President.
Are there any other?
Also the National Maritime Polytechnic, the NMP, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Should I ask again if there's any other? Because when I ask one, there's another. So would you like?
The Marina,
Concern.
the NMPA, the National Maritime Polytechnic, and CHED, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Okay. In that case, would His Honor like to mention these agencies in section 25 because it necessitated consultation with the resource persons to get the answer. And I would just, again, for the same reasons I've been repeatedly mentioning, I just want there to be more clarity. So if His Honor is acceptable, let us just name these three agencies and instead of appropriate government agencies.
Kasi kanina hindi na namin nilagay, Mr. President, Your Honor, training qualifications. Dito kasi sa section 42, nandiyan na po yung role of government agencies na kung saan i-refer dito sa section 25. Pero kung yun ang gusto nyo, pwede namin ilagay. Alang-alang po sa inyo.
Hindi ho, wag ho kayo mag-amend alang-alang
For
sa akin.
purpose of clarity.
Kung saan ho
Para matapos na lang, no? Tangayin na lang si Idol. Goodness.
tingin nyo na mas maliwanag.
Maliwanag na nga ito kung tutusin po, Your Honor, Madam. Kaya lang,
Pero ho kasi nung tinanong ko ho kayo, parang hindi pa ho kagad makasagot ang mga resource person. So I wasn't sure if hindi pa clear. But if it's very clear, I will not make an amendment, Your Honor.
Mukha na Idol, no? Halatang naiinis na no? Mababa pa ata ito eh. Ilang minutes ba to? Pero wala na pala hanggang dito. Malapit na.
Your Honor, the resource persons are the one who gives me advice at sila po ang nagpapaliwanag sa akin tungkol sa mga nakasulat sa bill na ito. And they are the ones that tells me kung ano yung mga pwedeng isingit o hindi amendments dito po sa bill. Now, ulitin ko po for the second time kasi po hindi nilagay itong yung mga government agencies na binanggit ko kanina tulad ng ST, yung O, yung CHED, NMP, and Marina sa Section 25, kasi po understood na yon pagdating sa role of government agencies, nandun na, included na yon. But we can accept your amendment.
I did not make an amendment yet, Your Honor. I was just asking a question. And after I heard the answers, I said it's up to His Honor. On that note, hindi ho ba kasama din dyan ng TESDA? Kasi pag narinig ho ni Majority Floor Leader na si TESDA pang nakalimutan natin, baka ho tumakbo bigla dito yun. Ayan na ho, tumatakbo na ho. Kasama ho ba ang TESDA?
Kasama pa rin po sa TESDA.
Ang TESDA po kasama.
Kasama po yung TESDA.
Sige po, I am not making an amendment. I am leaving up to His Honor to make that decision.
Saan bang TESDA? Saan bang TESDA?
If I may just give a
Please
information, Mr. President, it's no longer because it's no longer with TESDA, so it's now with Marina. Your Honor,
So then I have made my point. Hindi maliwanag kung kasama, kung sino hindi kasama, di
I
ba?
checked it. It's no longer part of
Yun,
the draft bill, Mr. President.
Yung TESDA, Mr. President, it says here, the TESDA shall in consultation with CHED and Marina. Pagdating sa training, of course, TESDA kasama in consultation with CHED and Marina. Mr. President, Your Honor.
Senator Joel is the expert, so
I'm
we
also a
defer
bit
to the
confused, Mr.
expert.
President, because if it is program registration, then I'd say yes, and development of training regulations. But if it is assessment, I am pretty sure that it was during my time when it was transferred to Marina, Your Honors.
Well, the provision kasi, Your Honor, that is in if I may, Mr. President, Senate Majority Floor Leader, the provision in question is Section 25 that says only seafarers certified by the appropriate government agency. So the wisdom we seek from the Majority Floor Leader, former TESDA Director General, is would TESDA be certifying? Because that is the operative word in this section.
I believe the lady senator from the Taguig just wants to clarify which agency.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, because it's not very clear.
And I mean, I think this question, the interjection of the Majority Floor Leader precisely illustrates my point, that it should just be clear.
Okay.
I was doing something else, Mr. President, when this representation caught the
The magic
discussion
word, TESDA.
of the two colleagues of mine. Mr. President, I don't see any harm in this particular provision in this particular provision on page 46 where TESDA, it says, shall in consultation with CHED and Marina develop, establish, and implement non-degree courses and programs on maritime education and other quality technical education and training programs for seafarers who may want to learn new skills or enhance their existing skills. It
So they're
only
not
means, Mr.
cited,
President,
develop.
TESDA is in charge of training regulations, of developing programs that will enable to help Marina to be able to implement, Mr. President, what was transferred to them, Mr. President, because the expertise remains with TESDA. So I don't see any problem having this, Mr. President, in this particular measure. Thank you. I hope
But
I was
to be
able
clear,
to
a bit, but your task is not yet over. So you have clarified, Mr. President, the Majority Floor Leader has clarified that Section 84 remains relevant.
Yes, Mr.
So
President.
my question is whether the sponsor believes it is necessary to identify each government agency that a seafarer needs to seek certification from. And so when I asked, he mentioned 3, and then I thought of Your Honor, and I asked TESDA, and the answer was yes, but
Nagkaroon pa ng ano dito call a friend
the Majority Floor Leader says no. So that is precisely my point. Baka mamaya, pag pinasa natin to, mag-insist na, hindi, punta kayo sa TESDA. If I understand correctly, Majority Floor Leader is saying, no, you don't need to. But the response that I was given just before you walked in
If it
is
is-
papasok si TESDA. So this should be clarified.
If it is STCW, it's no longer with TESDA when it comes to certification. What is stated here, Your Honor, distinguished colleague, is that TESDA remains would remain the certifying body in developing programs.
but
Yes,
not the
training
individual, but
Yes.
not certifying the
Yes.
individual. They are certifying the
The
programs.
programs, Mr. President.
Oh.
Yes, that's what
May I
that's what
interject?
it means, Mr.
May,
President.
if the agencies are enumerated on section 24, your honors, why don't we just put there, we mentioned section 24, or section 84. For example, only seafarers certified by appropriate government agencies,
No, Mr. President, Section 84 includes NLRC. Parang it's a basic enumeration of various government agencies. It is not limited to the certification. My only concern, and I will repeat, I leave it to the sponsor. I just don't want that when it leaves the halls of Congress, later on, for example, our expert in TESDA will say, hindi niya job mag-certify, ba't kayo nagpapa-certify dyan? So that's why the intention of the legislative body should be very clear, and that must come from the sponsor.
Okay, but you test
Mr. President, Your
Yes,
Honor,
Your Honor.
tapos na po yung period of interpellation natin, period of amendments na ito. Sana ang request ko lang po, sabihin lang niya sa akin kung ano yung amendments niya, and I will say whether I accept or not, and if I do not accept it, and I will explain. Ang nangyari po kasi, pina-explain niya muna ako, na bumabalik tayo sa interpellation, and then after ma-explain ko, pwede niyang i-amend at pwede niyang hindi. Napapahaba lang po tayo. Bakit hindi na lang po niya, Mr. President, Your Honor, sabihin na lang kung anong gusto niyang amendment, anong linya yon, and then I'll say accept or not. If I don't accept, and I'll tell the good senator from Taguig why I'm not accepting. Para mapabilis.
Hindi naman kasi pwede yun, Idol, di ba? Na magpasa-pasa na lang kayo basa-basa ng batas. Kailangan himay-himay yan. Kasi nga, ang dami nga mali na nakikita si Senador Pia Cayetano. Na dapat nyo ayusin. Tapos, dapat ganun na lang. Ano na yun? Pag sinabi mo, yun na yun. May goodness talaga tong si Senador Raffy Tulfo, no? Yan kasi, yan ang totoo kasing trabaho ng Senador Raffy Tulfo. Hindi yung grandstanding. Hindi yung Senate hearing in aid of legislation. My goodness.
Bilis lang po tayo. Kaysa naman po, kailangan pa muna ako magpaliwanag, babasahin niya, kailangan ko pa magpaliwanag, and then hindi siya satisfied sa paliwanag ko, then magkakaroon ng debate. At kapag halimbawa na satisfied siya sa paliwanag ko, then hindi na siya mag-amend. Humahaba lang po.
Pag si Idol, no, pwede ganun, no? Pero pag iba, ayaw niya, no? Kasi haba daw. Pero pag siya nagsalita, kahit sobrang haba na, okay lang. Joke talaga tong si Idol. Batas yan, Idol. Hindi yan basta-basta. Kailangan pag-aralan yan. Pag-isipang mabuti. Kaya nga kayo 24 senador eh. Di sana, ikaw na lang yung senador. My goodness.
Tayo, Mr. President, Your Honor. Kung gusto niyo po, maglatag na po ng banig dito. Sa unan.
Aabot talaga kayo ng ganyan pag hindi ka marunong. Di ba? Kasi isipin mo, tatanungin ka, tapos magtatanong ka din dun sa resource person mo. Magtatagal talaga kayo, di ba? Idol kasi. Ba't ka kasi pumasok dyan? Sabi mo, hindi ka tatakbo. O ngayon, tumakbo ka, nanalo ka, o panindigan mo. Ganyan talaga pag gumagawa ng batas. Kailangan pulido para hindi tayo paulit-ulit. Kasi, kala mo talaga, doon lang matatapos yung trabaho nyo sa ano eh. Hearing-hearing na yan eh.
Welcome to legislative work, Mr. President.
Yes! Welcome! Tama. Ganyan talaga, Idol. Diba? Kaya nga, kung wala kang alam, dyan sa trabaho pinapasok mo, huwag ka nang pumasok. Kaya ka nagigisa eh. Kasalanan ng mga tulponatics yan eh. Mga tulponatics, yung phone nyo, nagisa. Gandang watch party to ah. Ulit eh. Rinig nyo ba yung master?
Legislative work, Mr. President.
No, hindi naman po gagawin.
Ang kulit daw. Yan. Senador pa. Meron pa ba? Wala na eh. Hanggang dito lang ata mga master. Meron pa ba? Meron pa. Ito. Pusin natin to. Watch party.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this juncture, I move that we resume consideration on Senate Bill number 222.
Majority Leader Tulfo and
Thank you, Mr. President. So on section 14, which is, I believe, where we left off, I left it for the senator, for the sponsor to decide if he is comfortable leaving it with appropriate government agencies, given the discussion that we already have.
Thank you, Mr. President, Your Honor. The reason why we didn't specify the name of the appropriate agencies, kasi nga po, time might come na magkaroon ng addition ng mga appropriate agencies na mabigyan ng responsibility para sa training, and at the same time baka yung mga agencies na i-mention natin dito later on ay maalis na sa listahan at hindi na sila kasali sa mga training na inaalaw. So mas maganda open na lang po yun para kung sakali po merong darating yung time na nawala ang isa sa kanila o nadagdagan, at least hindi natin dito na specify at hindi na po kailangan tayo gagawa ng adjustment. Your Honor. Kasi if I may explain further, Mr. President, Your Honor, halimbawa nilagay natin Marina, who knows later on down the line after a year or two or after a few years, yung Marina ay mawawala na for whatever reason at hindi na sila ang designated na agency para sa paggawa ng training, etc. Then kung ilalagay natin dito, paano na yon? So another adjustment we're gonna make dito sa bill natin. If we specify Marina, just an example, Mr. President, Your Honor. Whereas if we leave it open, then kahit mawala Marina, kahit mawala yung CHED or any other agencies, at least we don't need to make an adjustment because we left it open. Mr. President, Your Honor.
Well, normally, Your Honor, if a function of one agencies would be removed, and by legislation, normally it would be substituted by the proper authority. But on that note, as I said, it is the choice of the sponsor if he will. So there's nothing to do, Your Honor. I have no amendment on the floor. We can move on.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Madam, Your Honor. Thank you po.
Thank you, Your Honor. My next question is on hours of my next amendment, possible amendment, is on
Meron pa, Idel. Dami pa pala. No? Saan pa ba to? Iabot hanggang dulo dito. Wala na. Hanggang dito na lang, no? Yan, kunti na lang naman. Nasa 15 minutes.
na page 18, section 29, hours of work and hours of rest. But again, with the sponsor's permission, I need to ask a question before I make an amendment. May I proceed?
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Yes, I note that this bill applies to both ships that are Philippine-owned and foreign-owned. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor.
And that would include ships that are plying just within Philippine territories, Philippine territorial waters. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so there are in fact different hours of work and hours of rest for seafarers compared to the regular hours in the labor code, no? That seems to be my impression.
I beg your pardon, Your Honor.
It appears to me that the hours of work and the hours of rest of the seafarers are different from the hours of work and the hours of rest under the labor code.
Yes, Your Honor.
So I will read here, it states here that a seafarer's normal work will be 8 hours a day with 1 rest day per week. If the seafarer is required to work beyond 8 hours, the maximum hours of work shall not exceed 14 hours in any 24-hour and 72 hours in any 7-day period. I'm not aware that this exists in the labor code. I am not certain though, because I am not a labor law practitioner, but am I correct or is it the same? Meron? Exactly the same?
This is stated in section 16.
Ano?
Normal work hours.
I never.
It is stated in section 61, Your Honor, in this bill, the hours of work and hours of rest, the provision of section 29 shall also apply to domestic seafarers. In addition, waiting time shall not be considered as compensable working time if the domestic seafarer is completely relieved from duty and can use the time effectively for one's own purposes. So that means that, yes, Your Honor, it also applies to domestic seafarers.
Yes, what His Honor is saying is Section 29 applies to domestic seafarers. But my question was, that was one of my questions. My other question was, are these hours of work identical or similar to the labor code provisions?
No, because it's not the neighborhood, but it's the Department Order 139.
Kaya sila tumatagal eh kasi, 'di ba? Mga question ni Pia Cayetano, iba yung sumasagot, sinasabi lang dito kay Idol. My goodness, kaya tumatagal Idol eh.
It is not in the labor code, Mr. President, Your Honor, but it's in the Department Order number 129, series of 2013, under the Department of Labor and Employment. Rules and regulations governing the employment and working conditions of seafarers on board ships engaged in domestic shipping. So ibig sabihin, yung basis po nito ay sa Department Order number 129.
Okay. So wala man siya sa labor code, there is a basis which is itong department order. Is that correct?
Your Honor, Department Order 129.
So in other words, kinopya po ito doon. Consistent po ito doon.
Tama po, Mr. President, Your Honor, consistent sa
What year po yan?
Ito pong series of Department Order 129, series of 2013, June 17, 2013,
2013. Okay.
yung date
So,
po nito.
ito na ho yung tanong ko that will be the basis of my decision if I will make an amendment. It says here, the minimum hours of rest for every seafarer shall be at least 10 hours in a 24-hour period. In other words, kasi before that, sabi, yung work niya, wag daw mag-exceed ng 14. So if there's 24 hours in a day, yun na nga, 10 hours yung kanyang rest, no? And then it goes on to say the hours of rest are divisible into 2 periods, one of which will be at least 6 hours in length. So kung yung time niya magpahinga 10 hours, yung isa doon, kailangan at least 6 hours. So yun na yung minimum na ibibigay sa kanya na rest. And syempre, maliligo pa siya, magbibihis pa siya. So baka yung tulog na lang niya 5 hours na lang. And science tells us that the average sleep a human should get, more or less, is 7 to 8 hours. So the reason I asked for the basis of this is because it appears based on this bill that talagang pwede palang 5 hours ang tulog lang ng seafarers natin. Yun ho ba talaga ang katanggap-tanggap po ba sa atin yun?
Yan po yung nakalagay sa MLC natin, Your Honor.
Oo nga naman, 5 hours lang tulog. Talagang grabe, no? Hinimay-himay talaga ni Senador Pia Cayetano, no? Welcome sa Congress. Raffy Tulfo.
Anyway, hindi naman 5 hours a day ang pahinga lang niya. Pag i-divide mo yan, pwede namang one day, 5 hours lang, and then later, more than 5 hours, hanggang sa ma-reach niya yung certain period na kailangan magkaroon siya ng that number of rest in a 7-day period, Your Honor.
Sir, minimum.
Minimum.
Hindi ko yata naintindihan yun.
Pwede naman tumaas.
Kasi your bill states that kailangan lang siyang mabigyan ng 10 hours. And itong 10 hours can be divided into 2 for so long as may 6 hours. So what I'm saying is, if nagsunod-sunod na araw to or every other day, then possibly yung 6 hours na binigay sa kanya, baka 5 hours lang yung tulog niya. So nag-aalala lang po ako, is that really the standard internationally and are we okay with it? And I apologize that I have to ask that question because I am not an expert po. So pag dinaanan ko to, tapos papayag tayo as a body na ganun ang standards, mabigat po sa akin yun. But again, I am not the expert. I'm just stating what I know about science and the need for sleep.
You have a point there, Mr. President and Your Honor, but it is the international standard. It states there. At minimum lang naman po ito.
What do you mean by that, sir? Kasi pwede siyang magtrabaho ng 14. So may iwan lang na pahinga niya is 10. And then pwede siyang i-divide into 2. So 6. Kaya nga sabi ko, mga
Kasi, di ba, seafarers normal work hours shall be 8 hours a day with 1 rest per day. Dapat lang dito, okay? If the seafarer is required to work beyond 8 hours, the maximum hours of work shall be not exceed 14 hours. Grabe naman yun, 14 hours. In any 24 hours period and 22 and 72 hours in any 7 days period. Parang ang gulo nga, no? So, dapat consistent. Dito, master, no? Yung ano namin, yung sa kontrata namin, ang nakalagay lang, ganito lang. Itong 8 hours, tapos sa isang linggo may isang day off. Yun lang. Tapos pag sumobra ka sa 8 hours, overtime na yon. Medyo ginawa nila kasing komplikado, kaya ganyan.
5 plus lang ang maiiwan sa kanya. So, that is a fact.
Nagtatanong pa si Idol. Kaya kasi tumatagal kasi nagtatanong pa si Idol eh. Hindi niya rin kasi maintindihan eh.
Ito
Para
po ang
silang,
nakalagay minimum standard sa MLC, Mr. President, Your Honor, na which we ratified.
kasi iba kasi, di ba, sa mga seaman kasi, iba talaga kasi yung ano nila dyan, oras eh. Parang ang pinaka day off na lang kasi nila dyan, di ba, yung ano, yung tawag nito, pag bababa yung barko. Di ba ganun ba yan? Ko rin kasi masyadong alam yan eh. Pero alam ko talaga, pag kunyari, magkaka-day off ka lang dyan, pag ano, pag kunyari, ano yung barko, hihinto.
And I'm talking about the MLC 2006, Mr. President, Your Honor. For the minimum standard as set forth by the MLC, Your Honor.
May sasabihin pa ho kayo or you're saying that that is what is indicated? Yung nakasulat dito sa bill nyo, yun na ho yun? Na nasa
Wait lang
ano?
mga master
MLC. Yun na yun.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Your Honor.
and we are a signatory to that. So
And we are
basically,
signatory.
tinanggap na natin yon. Now is not the time for us to question that. Okay, so in that case, Your Honor, wala na akong amendment. I just express my concern na pakahirap talaga din ang buhay ng seafarer, ano?
Opo.
I'll move on, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Doon din sa hours of work and rest, hindi ho ba dumadami na ang seafarers na babae?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oo. And pagka domestic ho yung biyahe nila, how long are they usually on a ship? Or I'm sure it varies, but what are the normal?
Ang domestic kasi, Your Honor, short term lang po yan, unlike dun sa international na ang biyahe from point A to point B na inaabot ng weeks. So there's a difference between domestic and international. Like as we know, pagdating sa domestic, sometimes meron yung biyahe ng barko na 24 hours lang, meron umabot as long as 3 days. But wala po akong alam na barko biyahe dito, inter-island vessels, domestic ships na umaabot po ng isang linggo from point A to point B.
Yes, yes. Oo. Thank you. Kasi, Your Honor, my amendment, if at all, would be with regards to an existing law, which is the Expanded Breastfeeding Promotion Act. This law requires that employers give their female lactating employee time to express their milk. So, kaya ko naitanong na maiksi lang ba yung biyahe niyan? Kasi kung maiksi, pwede nilang i-store yung milk nila and then iuwi pa nila sa baby nila. So, covered naman ba ito ng ating general provisions in our law that requires that Philippine laws are followed? Or would His Honor be of the view that an amendment would be necessary to ensure that that is included?
Are you referring to the domestic shipping?
Domestic, yes, Your Honor.
Domestic?
Domestic, yes.
Okay, then Philippine laws would
Governed.
be governed and followed,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Okay, so in that case, Your Honor, no need again for an amendment. I just want to spread into the record that ship owners have to be conscious of this law, the expanded breastfeeding law, which requires that they give their female lactating mothers time to breastfeed.
Yes, yes, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Yes.
You're correct.
And I was, the only discussion I know that His Honor's staff had with my staff was with regards to an earlier question I had on the amendment actually that I made on health status, no? And I understand that there is an issue accepting my amendment. I will make this simple, Your Honor. Again, this is also a law. This is a Philippine policy, no?
2 hours na tayo mga master, no? 2 hours na tayong ano, kinigisa si Raffy.
So I'm spreading it into the record that for domestic travels, that must be followed kasi Philippine law. So I can see His Honor nodding his head. So does that mean that subject to style, my amendment is accepted for domestic seafarers?
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor, yes, I
Thank you.
accept.
Thank you very much. And in the period of, during the BICAM, I will, I ask the indulgence of His Honor because he is the one with the resource persons who are probably in contact, no, with Dole and the like, but we will also ask my own staff to try to connect with them to see how that works internationally. It is not my area of expertise. I do not know about international practice. So hopefully in the period of, during the BICAM, we can get clarity for the international portion.
Yes,
Your
Your Honor,
Honor.
thank you very much, Your Honor. Mr. President, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mm-mm. Okay, Your Honor, on page 23, sorry, page 24 na. Page 24, line 11. My amendment is delete the phrase COVID-19 or similar, such that the phrase would read, seafarers who have contracted diseases of international concern or which cause global health emergency. Sa akin lang naman po, kumbaga medyo tapos na ho yung COVID-19, so it's suffice it to say that any disease of international concern should be covered by this bill, or by this provision. No need to mention COVID-19.
That is correct. You're definitely right, Your Honor, and I accept.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Your Honor.
Mr. President, on page 25, section 46, termination of employment. Are the again, a preliminary question to determine if there is a need for an amendment. Are the enumerations here, do they need to all happen for employment to cease, or is any one individually a ground for termination of employment? Because it says here, the employment, blah, 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 shall cease when the seafarers complete their period of contractual service aboard the ship, sign off from the ship, and arrive at the destination. Must all three be complete?
Blah, blah, blah. Di ba yung nagganon si attorney? Nagganon to mga, ang palayaga, ang palayagang.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
So the phrase, this provision, Your Honor, is termination of employment. And on
Yes.
letter A, it says that the employment of the Filipino seafarer shall cease
Mhm.
when, and then there are 3 incidents mentioned. Do these 3 have to happen for the termination, for the employment to cease, or is it meant to be an or? For clarity, Your Honor.
You're right, Mr. President, Your Honor. We can use the word or. It doesn't have to
So-
be.
Okay. So perhaps, Your Honor, the terminology I
Talaga siya sigurado, no? Kasi tumitingin siya lagi dun sa resource person niya eh.
will recommend is shall cease when
The seeker is completely.
subject to style, no, when any of the following occur, subject to style.
I accept.
Kasi any or, di ba? Or, di ba? So any of the following occur.
Bakit?
All ba or?
I'm sorry. Hindi
It's
ko naman
all.
sinasabi. Sorry.
Okay.
It
Withdraw.
should be all, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Okay.
It should be
So,
all. It should, all must be completed.
okay, so again, subject to style, when the following, I don't know if you call them conditions, when the following occurs, subject to style, Your Honor, I think that's pretty understandable. It is all, so that is our
Yeah.
main concern, all, okay?
If I may I just bang the gavel for the 2 other amendments that you accepted?
Your Honor,
That's
sorry.
okay. We will ask the secretary to reflect in the records that we had approved all your
Okay,
amendments.
and the last one, subject to style, is when all the conditions happen, subject to style. That's
Yes.
for the section 46 on page
I
25.
believe the sponsor had
Yes,
accepted,
Mr. President, Your Honor, I accept. Subject to style, yes.
accepted and approved.
Remember you said you wanted to go back.
Infectious illness
Meron
or
pa.
ailment. Your
Nakatapos
Honor,
na.
on section 56, this is quarantine and medical expenses in repatriation due to infection, epidemics, epidemic, ano ba to, with S? Epidemics or pandemic. So I think subject to style, and I don't know if there's a doctor around, but it doesn't sound right to say infection. So, huh? So if His Honor will agree, my amendment would be to just delete infection because the body of that section actually refers to an epidemic or pandemic. And then, so that's my first amendment. Can we just delete infection, the word infection?
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor, I accept.
So,
Yes,
thank you.
accepted.
And then for
Dire-diretso na si Idol, no? Tapos tama naman kasi talaga, di ba? May infection na yun eh. Kasi nga, ano na eh.
consistency,
Ay, naku.
uh,
Ang haba na. Magto 2 hours na.
what is stated now in the bill is epidemics or pandemic. So can we just be consistent and say both singular or both plural,
That's correct.
subject to style?
You're right. It should be singular, Your
Talagang hinimay-himay.
Honor. Mr. President, Your Honor, delete the S, so it should read epidemic or pandemic, singular.
So accepted, Your Honor?
I accept, Mr. President, Your Honor.
It's accepted. Approved.
Okay, Your Honor, I was just informed by my staff that the word infection was inserted in the body, but since His Honor has accepted the amendment to the title, can we just be consistent and delete the word infection in the body?
I accept,
There
Mr.
be
President,
no
Your Honor.
objection. The amendment's accepted.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's the very last. Ano nga ba to? Yeah. Okay. 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 Your Honor, on page 41, section 79, this is the provision on curriculum committee. It basically it basically says that a curriculum committee shall be formed to periodically assess, etc., etc., etc. My question first, to determine if there's a need for an amendment is, there are no details that I have seen on the creation of this committee. So is this committee part of the Intergovernmental Coordination and Cooperation Council, or is it meant to be a standalone committee? How would His Honor want to treat this committee?
A curriculum committee shall be formed, periodically assessed.
Naman.
So standalone. Parang sa standalone. Saan yan? Sa section? So the same there. Oo. So actually, Your Honor, in that section
Your
that I mentioned, it just says that a curriculum committee shall be formed and chaired with the following as members. So if it is meant to be a standalone, then I have no further amendment, Your Honor. At least we put it on the record that it's standalone, because sometimes baka may umako pa dyan. Baka sabihin nitong Cooperation Council that it's under them, or
Thank you, Mr. President, Your Honor.
so what's the answer? Is it a standalone,
It is a
Mr.
standard.
President?
Standalone.
Okay, so then I don't have, I don't have any more, Your Honor. I just want to put on record that I was one of the first to file this bill. I cannot remember how many years ago. Napagod na rin yata yung staff ko to refile this bill. So may I ask that I be reflected as a co-sponsor, Your Honor? Thank you.
Yes, with the permission of the
And co-author.
sponsor
Yes,
permission.
yes, Mr. President, Your Honor.
and also, you have a question? You also? Oh, yes, please,
Mr. President, meron pa akong isisingit pala from Senator Coco Pimentel.
Yes.
On page 15, after line 2, insert new
So
section.
thank you. I'd just like to thank Ma'am Pia. Thank you very much, Ma'am Pia.
Thank you, Senator Cayetano. Thank you.
Yes, please proceed, Senator Tulfo. Page
On
15.
page
Ayan, natapos din, Idol. Natapos din.
15, after line 2, insert new section 27 before duties and responsibilities. Section 27, nature of liability. The manning agency shall be jointly and severally liable with the principal or ship owner for any and all claims arising out of the implementation of the employment contract involving Filipino seafarers. I so move, Mr. President.
There be no objection to the amendment. Amendment is approved. No more amendments, Your Honors?
No more-
Yes, Senator Risa is raising her hand, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Meron pa pala, meron pa, hindi pa tapos.
Yes, please go ahead, ma'am. You can stay in the middle podium, of course.
Salamat kayo, Mr. President. Good
Yes,
sponsor.
ano pala to,
Mahabol-
ano pala to? Miss Risa Hontiveros.
na lang po ng isang proposed amendment
Yes, ma'am.
dun po sa coverage of seafarers. So dun pa rin po sa section 4P, page 6, line 4. Tama naman po na kanina napag-usapan natin yung section 3 ng DMW Act on the definition of terms. Kung saan sa section 3 na yon, letter J, mayroong seafarer na ang definition ay refers to an OFW who is engaged in employment in any capacity on board a merchant marine vessel plying international waters or other sea-based craft of similar category. So tama naman po, wala pong nakabanggit dito na to be engaged. Pero po, meron po akong nahanap an earlier term defined here in this section 3, letter G, overseas Filipino worker, OFW, or not an immigrant recognitions. Kaya issue ng nagbubukas ng pagtama yung to on and so forth po, yung nais ko pong
Mas na natin mga master, ha?
page 6, I so move, Mr. President.
Wala na naman din si, si Pia Cayetano eh.
Okay, no?
Para din lamang po maging consistent sa DMW Act at pag-extend.
Meaning wala pa po silang contract, therefore, hindi pa sila considered seafarer or ating BMW soons. Nasa process pa lang po. Ang pinirmang kontrata, contract yet has been signed.
Good sponsor, dito din po sa definition, kasama po yung who has been includes overseas intent nitong bill, MW Act,
I see your point, mga OFW.
President
So
good
since
sponsor.
Ano ni Idol, tapos ng kalbaryo niya, may isa pa pala.
to be engaged, so gusto niyo po.
Opo, good sponsor. Dahil nga po, sa definition ng OFW, sir.
But sa MLC, wala pong doon about to be engaged first to seafarer who international waters standard ng MLC.
Sponsor. Pero ang policy ordinances, mission, kung ating po, ay pwedeng i-reflect po yung big sabihin po yung deputy be engaged. Mr. President, good sponsor.
Yeah, I ask for 1 minute suspension, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President.
I should suspend it.
Ayan, mga master. Wala na. Tapos na si Senador Pia Cayetano, no? Yun, gisang-gisa. Wala na naman din to. Meron pa bang sasabihin dito si Idol na maayos? Ano muna natin?
Happening.
Pati yung langit sumisigaw.
Ito, meron
Ask
pa
the
pala.
members to stay for just
Okay.
one historic picture.
Ito na yung pinaka last natin. Ito na, merong speech pa si Idol.
After his manifestation, I'll suspend session for 1 minute. Yes, we recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm really overwhelmed with joy. I cannot believe that this is happening.
Pati yung langit sumisigaw.
Yan talaga, Idol. Yan ang totoong trabaho ng senador.
Yung langit parang
Yung
pumapalakpak.
langit sumisigaw.
This is the first time na ako po ay nagpapasa ng bill at napunta na po sa third reading, and I would like very much to thank my
Yan talaga magpasa ng batas, di ba? Kaya Idol, aral, wag mo na, tama na kasi yung tinan mo yung mga, tinan mo si Senador Pia Cayetano, di ba? Hindi nyo naman nakikita si Senador Pia Cayetano dyan sa, sa mga Senate hearing nyo na nag-grandstanding, di ba? Sila talaga nandun for in aid of legislation. Kayo, in aid of grandstanding. Yan, tama na kasi yan, Idol, di ba? Aral na. Ngayon na na-experience mo na kung gaano kahirap magpasa ng bill. Di ba? Mag-aral na. Di ba?
colleagues, especially you, Mr. President, who's been supporting me from day one, from the get-go, and I really thank you. And of course, yung mga seafarers, they were always with me, and I always consult them. Lalo na po yung AMASOP. Yung AMASOP po ay isang union na marami pong followers. May pinakamaraming union members. Of course, the DMW and the OWA and my staff who worked overtime to make these things possible. And for all the seafarers, this is all for you. Of course, gift to sa inyo ng ating Pangulo dahil sinertify niya as urgent bill and it really happened. So also I'd like to thank our President, BBM, for making this a bill urgent. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Bongbong Marcos and Mr. President SP.
Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. May I ask for 1 minute?
Mr. President,
Yes.
before we do that, may we recognize the distinguished lady from Pangasinan and Iloilo, Senator Grace Poe, for her explanation of vote. Mr. President.
Yes, I distinguish.
Mr. President, to world. In the same year,
Yan, mga master, no? Natapos din, no? Ang haba. Grabe tong party na to, no? Watch talaga, no? Pero, yan na nga. Idol, aral na ng batas. Para hindi ka na mga mote, di ba? Yan talaga eh. Gusto maayos si Senator Pia Cayetano, marami siyang question. May karapatan naman siya niyan eh. Na para maayos naman. Hindi yung basa-basa na lang magpapasa ng batas, putik yan. Ano yun? Kung ano lang sabihin mo, yun na yun. Diba? Hindi ganon sa Senado. Yan talagang totoong trabaho nila. Di ba? Yan ang na-experience mo na, Idol. Aral na. Nang ano, tama na yung grandstanding. Ano tayo sa face ni Idol? Ha? Ito tayo sa ano ni Idol. Yan. Idol! Trabaho na ha. Tama na grandstanding. Hindi naman masayang yung pera in aid of legislation. Wala naman nangyayari. Lagi mo sinasabi, magpapasa ka ng batas, magpapasa ka ng batas. Tapos hanggang ngayon wala pa rin. Yan, no? Try mo na. Ang hirap, no? Saka yun na nga, di ba? Tingnan yung mga tulponatics, no? Pag hindi talaga abogado yung mga senador natin. Ang hirap, no? Kasi nagtatanong pa siya, di ba? Hindi siya sigurado. Ayan. Ha? So yun mga master, nag-enjoy ba kayo? Medyo matagal-tagal, lumabot tayo ng 2 hours, no? Pero sulit naman, no? Ganun talaga. Ha? Pag walang alam, magigisa ka talaga. Yung mga master, ganito na lang tayo. Sabi nga ni Atol ni Libaya, matulog tayo ng maimbing. Dalang natutulog ng maimbing, siya ang laging panalo. Paalam po pansamantala, God bless, ingat po kayo. Shoutout po kay Atol ni Libayan, kay Atol ni Claire Castro, at sa mga kabatas natin yan, shoutout po sa inyo. Sa mga master ko yan nanonood sa ating premiere, thank you po sa inyo at shoutout sa inyong lahat. Hanggang dito na lang po tayo. Babush.